Welcome to the Evergreen Church Life Podcast. The Bible tells us in the book of Philippians that we as believers need to be unified in our mission to know God, share life, and change the world. We've got a lot going on here at Evergreen, and we want to cultivate that culture of unity. The strategy of this podcast is simple. We sit down with a ministry leader here in our church, and we talk about how God is working around them. Today we're talking to Matt O'Mealy, the executive pastor of Community, who serves
as the executive pastor of Community.
This is the worst. It always takes me a couple times to do this.
Allow myself to introduce myself.
He's the problem. All right, Matt, we're here. Thank you for being on the podcast. You're always on the podcast.
Thanks for being on my own podcast.
Hi, my name's AJ. You're welcome that I'm here.
This is going to be rough.
No.
We just know that this is going to be... We hope that everybody who listens to this just understands the dynamic that your pastors love to be together, and we have a great time just doing ministry. There are a lot of guys who are in ministry, and they have a really hard time. And if you've noticed anything about all of these stories and how we all serve, I hope you know that we really do love coming to work.
Yeah.
Because God has blessed us, not just in the work that we do, but also just in the relationships that we have.
That's good.
It's super cool.
Mm-hmm.
So we're talking to Matt today about his role as the executive pastor over Community. So if you haven't listened to it yet, Matt and Kiva, his wife, the latest episode of The Grove, the last episode of the season, dropped today. We're recording this the week that it dropped, so we're going to be a couple of weeks separated from that release. But if you haven't listened to Matt's testimony and Kiva's testimony, be sure to do that. It's pretty great. But Matt, why don't you tell us, why does your role exist at Evergreen, and how does it contribute to the body in our life here? Yeah.
Well, one of the ways to kind of answer that, I would say, is the pastor over Community. One of my main prompts, let's say, is to make sure no one falls through the cracks. When I was serving as the Reach pastor, the pastor over our young adults, I was always asking Michael and other lead pastors questions about how we were organizing ministries and things, because I've come from a different background with church planting, and I always want to make sure that people are being served. You can't please everybody with everything we do, but if we're not always trying to figure out how to grow and change things, then things get rusty, people fall through the cracks. And so why does my role exist? Well, it's to make sure that people are connecting well. And the reason that we asked AJ to come on and interview me was because I took a lot of the roles off of his plate. You know, all of us wear multiple hats. I was just having a conversation with one of our ministry residents the other day, and we were talking about callings to ministry. And that was something that I learned early on. We think we're called to ministry, and we have this is the thing.
Like the lane.
Or this one really narrow idea of what I'm going to do. And then I was thinking, in my call to ministry and what I'm doing right now, I've always felt called to help people understand theological topics. And I think I talked about this on the Grove podcast, but me serving in coffee shops for a long time and seeing people wrestling with big theological and philosophical questions and me feeling unequipped to answer them is what sent me to seminary. And I had already felt called to ministry, but that was what kind of encouraged me, who didn't want to continue being a student, to go and continue being a student. And so that's my call, is I've always wanted to help people to have that light turn on, to connect those dots. And so now, am I still doing my calling, so to speak, in my role as the executive community pastor? I was talking with one of our residents, and I was like, yeah, because I'm still... I'm teaching a Sunday school class. I still teach on Wednesday nights periodically. I am helping equip our small group shepherds and Sunday school teachers to make sure that they are equipping people and teaching the word and all those things. And so I'm still at just a different level doing my calling, which is seeing people's light bulbs turn on they get a new concept. They understand God a little bit deeper. They feel more connected to the church body. And so it's just, my role looks different, and, all the different hats I'm wearing now, it's still is a part of that. And we already interviewed Scott, but I was like, what do you think Scott's call to ministry is? Do you think that all of those 5,000 hats he wears are his calling? It's no, he does so many things, but in all those things, we're still getting to do the calling that we have. And so my role exists to make sure that people feel connected, because I don't remember if we've talked about it on here, Philip, or not, but just the statistics of how people can actually, how many people you can actually know. You know, I looked it up just to verify that I was thinking correctly, but it's kind of like 150 working names-ish, roughly. It's kind of the idea of how many that you can practically know. And then around 50 or so are people that are meaningful relationships as far as like regular part of your life. And so as a church grows as large as we are now, that's one of the reasons we have as many different types of groups that we do, and as many pastors and staff and extended leaders that we have in the church, because we want to make sure that if you think of groups of 150, we have to have, you know, kind of pastoral or staff oversight of that many groups of 150 people. And if we have as many, we're even around like 1,700 now on Sundays, it just takes a lot. And so that's my main job of how I contribute to the body, is making sure that as we have that many people, that we're casting vision and advancing our ministry efforts in a way that best facilitates and stewards what God's given us. That's why we are different, in that we have a full traditional Sunday school and life groups as well. And we have a really high percentage of involvement in both of those. And so one of the phrases we use a lot around here is, as we grow bigger, we have to grow smaller. I'm sure we stole that from somebody.
Probably.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But it's really effective, because so much what I've experienced with church plants, as they grow quickly from 0 to 100 type of a thing, they can outgrow the small amount of staff or leaders that they have pretty quickly. And we're just doing that on a larger scale here. So we don't want to have 100 people in a Sunday school, because even just as the stats show us the way that human relationships and the human brain works, like that's a lot of people in a class. And so we're not doing our job well if we're not equipping new leaders and giving them opportunities to launch more classes. So we can try and keep it maybe to that 50 number, because that's where there's an effective amount of relationships that can happen there. And similarly, I don't want 24 or more people sitting in a living room for a life group. I want it to be smaller, like a dozen or so that way they have the right understanding of what they're doing. And if they invite people in and they grow, that's awesome. They can joyfully send out and equip people. But just making sure in all of those areas that no one falls through the cracks. If all of our life groups are bursting at the seams, all of our Sunday schools are bursting at the seams, people start falling through the cracks. Right. And so we have to have a vision and a concept of where we're going and why. Otherwise, systems don't just take care of themselves automatically. And so, yeah, that's my main role of what I'm accomplishing right now.
So you oversee, help everybody understand. So you oversee Sunday school, you oversee life groups, you oversee, I think of it as like the internal development of our community. And something you touched on that I think is important for people to understand is that we typically, like we're having conversations with people all the time about a call to ministry, or I feel like I'm supposed to be working in vocational ministry, because they see a healthy culture here on staff, and it's obviously it's appealing. But one of the things I remember talking to young adults about that the Lord really drilled into my head as I was navigating those conversations with them, because they're navigating conversations about their life, like who they're going to be, whatever. And I think we have the same temptation in church life of thinking that my relationship with God is determined by what I do, but really it's about who I am as a child of God, as a minister of reconciliation, as a member of the royal priesthood. And like in your role, you are not just equipping, but you're deploying people and helping to cultivate that mindset of like, no, you're not just the person that does the coffee. No, you're not just the person that leads a life group or a Sunday school class. Because our roles change, and we have to be pliable, and that's a key part of our maturity as believers. Is like, I mean, AJ, you're about to go plant a church, and you've never been a senior pastor before.
That's right.
And it's super scary. But like, if you would have, we were just talking before we started recording that AJ and I have been doing ministry together for about 9 years. Yeah. And when I started, I wasn't on staff. I was just a dad. And he was the student pastor, the associate student pastor, soon became the student pastor. And now we've just been on this journey together. And you're kind of a testimony to that of like, hey, I think all of us are. Like, I started a ministry doing this thing, and then all of a sudden I'm doing something else, doing something else.
And like going back to what you were talking about when talking to young adults and talking to people who are wrestling with this call to ministry, it's important for us to remember every follower of Jesus Christ is called to ministry. So we're all called to ministry. You don't have to be on a church staff with a paycheck to be effective in ministry. I mean, the Lord knows we would not be sitting here having these conversations about the ministries that happen at Evergreen Baptist Church if it wasn't for all of the people who are working their 9-to-5s, but then also being diligent to pursue and live out their call to ministry in the way that they serve in our church. And so having a role like Matt's helps us get those people into the right places for both community and for areas of service as well.
Yeah, before I had my role, you were over life groups and Sunday school among lots of other things.
Yeah.
So can you clue us in on the history? Because I'm still, of the three of us, you've been on the staff the longest.
Sure.
And so you know more of the history of life groups and Sunday schools at Evergreen.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that first comes to mind is everything we do is anchored in Pastor Michael Gabbert's philosophy of people follow people, not programs.
Yeah.
And so for that reason, we've always been staff heavy. But like Matt, what you were talking about with us wearing multiple hats is as our church grows, our staff is able to grow. And then staff members can then put more attention and focus on specific lanes. And so, as you said, when I took over as discipleship pastor, I was overseeing life groups and Sunday schools and all of those things, as well as a lot not associated with community ministry. But what we realized is as we grow as a church, you have to have systems. Systems does not mean that now all of a sudden we've lost the personal touch.
Yeah.
Systems are necessary. So like you said, people don't fall through the cracks, and we do get people connected with people, and we do get a positive community happening. And so I know when I took over, we were running about 50 life groups, and they were all on an Excel documents on a volunteer's computer at home that I did not have access to. And so as I took over that ministry, we had to begin to build systems of, okay, how can we make sure that the entire staff is aware of who our life groups are, who are those shepherds, are they being trained, what church members are in life groups, what church members are not in life groups. And I think you were pretty fresh on staff starting off in the young adult ministry.
Yeah.
When I actually pulled you in and was like, hey, you have a lot of experience in small group ministry. Would you come help me build this system?
Yeah.
So what was great is even though I was the one over it, Matt has been a part of when we really leaned into building systems for our community ministry. Matt's been able to be a part of that. And so as we've grown as a church, we've just realized the need to put a lot of attention on the systems that are around our community ministry. So our people follow people, and when they fall through the cracks, that doesn't happen. The other thing that I love about our community ministry is our community ministry, and Matt, you may speak to this, that's where we see our line of care. So what I mean by that is if a church member, let's say they lose a loved one, and so a family is in a season of mourning, and they just need a lot of support. What we call that is, okay, what's the first line of care? So our first line of care is our life group ministry. If they're not in a life group, then our second line of care is Sunday school. If they're not in a Sunday school, are they serving somewhere? If they're not serving somewhere, what pastor are they most connected to? And so I know that's one of the systems that we got to put together. And so all of these things that Matt does in community ministry, it all focuses back to why do we have systems? Why do we have programs? Why are we using softwares? Why are we doing all these things? It's so that people follow people, not so we learn from people, but it's like what Paul said, imitate me as I imitate Christ. Our goal is to point everybody to Jesus.
Yeah. And it's creating intentional levels of what you're just saying. Paul's saying, follow me as I follow Christ. Well, if we have an intentional system and intentional levels of that leadership, not just paid staff leadership, but lay leadership, that they're properly in place.
Exactly.
Then as someone feels the weight of the world or an issue is happening, then they know who to turn to. And they're not kind of just at our church, just in a crowd of a couple thousand people, not knowing what to do. And so creating systems, and we don't live and die by the systems, but we make sure that the systems are in place so that way we are the best stewards we can be. You know, being overly strict about everything is not what being a good steward is, but being just intentional is being a good steward of our people so no one falls through the cracks.
You know, this conversation about systems is making me think through, you know, like there are parts of church culture that are just kind of ingrained in us now. Like we take roll in Sunday school, we take roll in life group, those kinds of things. And those are a system. Like if we go back to Acts chapter 6, like the original example of systems was that the Greek widows were not getting their allotment of food when they passed out food in the first century church. So the disciples said, "Hey, we need a system. Why don't you give us some names of men that you trust to take care of you, to wait tables?" Essentially, that's where we get the office of deacons. And systems exist, especially like Matt, you said earlier, as we get bigger, we've got to get smaller. Systems exist so that people don't fall through the cracks. And there is a just to give people like some insight into church leadership and the toll of church leadership. One of the things that is common, that happens all the time, is people they execute the Irish goodbye, and then they get upset. They say, "Nobody called me." So for those of you that don't know, an Irish goodbye is whenever you leave a party without telling anybody that you're leaving, and then everybody realizes like 15, 20, 30 minutes, an hour later, like, "Hey, where'd so-and-so go?" "Oh, well, I guess they left." And people, they give the Irish goodbye to the churches. And so like they just like disappear. And if you're not taking roll in Sunday school, if you're not checking on people regularly, those systems help us see like, "Hey, you haven't been in Sunday school in like a month.
Yeah.
Are you doing okay?" Like they might be sick. They might have not been able to come to church and they need a welfare check. They need somebody to check on them. Those kinds of systems allow us to know like, oh, we can help keep people together and they won't fall through the cracks, because the enemy loves to slip in behind us and be like, "Well, see, you've been gone for a month and nobody's called you. Nobody noticed that you were gone. Man, they clearly don't love you. They don't care about you." And he tries to steal the sheep away from the flock. And systems end up becoming like, we don't live and die by them, but they become really incredible tools, and they're godly tools for us to be able to encourage and to admonish and to correct and to help people stay involved.
Yeah.
Because we're all struggling trying to make it and to follow Jesus. And we need, the reminder. We write notes to ourselves to remind ourselves of important things because they're important.
Yeah.
So we're kind of getting on rabbit trails.
Well, I was going to say, this is a reminder, thinking not that we're just like, yay, ministry and making systems or whatever, because that's nerdy. That's what you say. But it is important because we really care about people. And I was just, as you're talking, I was thinking of the examples of what a effective person looks like in the Bible. So whether that be like the Proverbs 31 woman or the examples of the parables of, the good servants that is taking care of the master's stuff while he's away, not the one that's burying it. Like all of them, how did the good servant multiply the master's money when he was gone? Well, there was a system and effort that was put into place, like all of those things. It shows intentionality and leaning into a plan of some sort. That is what it looks like to be a good servant, a good leader, a good follower of Christ. And so whether that be, us talking to the life group shepherds and Sunday school teachers who are listening to this conversation right now, or a person who's new to the church that's feeling timid, that's sitting on the outskirts, knowing, hey, I don't know how I should get plugged in or whatever. It's like, well, do you see that there are groups, that there are systems of things going on? If you go and jump in, they are created there to take care of you.
Right.
So please don't feel like you have to be invited to jump into a Sunday school or to participate in anything that's going on. Just show up, go to prayer breakfast, go to these things. Right. And that brings you into the system's not a cold thing that we just live and die by, like we've been saying, but it's there as an encouragement and a protection for our people, whether that be from leadership or from those that we're serving as well. So.
Yeah, the common conversation that we have people come to us and say, "I really need to be discipled by somebody. I need to disciple someone." And for a long time, we try to play matchmaker, and it doesn't work because the Holy Spirit works those things out. And so we've just started to tell people, you need to just go where the people are. You need to go where the men are. You need to go where the women are. So if you feel isolated, you need to be poured into. Guys, you need to go to prayer breakfast with all the guys that are older than you, guys that are younger than you. Women, you want to be discipled? Go to the women's prayer nights. Go to the women of Evergreen events. Like to build those relationships.
When's the last time you were in Sunday school?
Right.
Yeah.
Like most of our Sunday schools are 50 plus people. Like
Exactly.
There's people.
Yeah. Don't think about it. Be about it.
Yeah. And I've even had one of my young adults, I remember, told us this story like a year ago or so, where they wanted to be discipled. And I was struggling to play matchmaker for them. And then they were just sitting in the same place in the sanctuary over and over and over. And they're like, hey, do you know so-and-so? I've been watching her and I'd love to be a mom like her someday. And I was like, you should go ask her, And that's the pray, seek, ask, pray thing that we say, was she was watching and she saw someone who was a faithful follower and like a good parent and all that. She was like, I'd love to be like her. Go talk to her.
Yeah.
She didn't realize how much work she had already done to help herself find a disciple.
Yeah. So Matt, if your role was to disappear tomorrow, not you, obviously.
Yeah.
The world would mourn if you disappeared. But
if I disappeared, send a search party. Yeah.
Probably in the woods somewhere. We're not really sure.
I'll follow a trail of coffee beans. If you
it's like Hansel and Gretel, only with coffee beans. So if you were to disappear tomorrow, or your role was to disappear tomorrow, how would that affect the church? If nobody was organizing small groups and intentionally putting together systems for life for Sunday school, like what would that happen to the church?
Well, I was thinking through that, and if you take away, because my role is an indirect role of ministry versus being like where I was the young adult pastor, where I was over a direct demographic. So if you took away my role as like that indirect role, then it goes, the job that has to be done either falls back onto, someone else's plate and spreads them thinner. So they're not going to be as effective at their tasks that they need to be. Or it might turn into a lay leader led thing, which is not necessarily a bad thing in and of itself. But as we were saying at the beginning, when there's not a lead person, from my experience of watching these things happen in church plants that are growing quickly, when there isn't a singular, not singular because it has to be on a person, but like one lead set of eyes that has the vision, that is keeping track of things, casting that vision, and keeping things going in a similar direction, things just kind of end up maintaining and not growing. And that's where you might get Sunday schools that are bursting at the seams of 100 plus people, because the lay leader doesn't have the not responsibility, but the bandwidth, like the bandwidth and like the pull to be able to be like, hey, I bet God has a call. I'm watching you. God has a call in your life. Like they just don't have the bandwidth to do that as a lay leader. So they're not as quick at multiplying leaders because that's not their job. They're an accountant during the week or whatever the case may be. And so things just kind of end up stagnating and just maintaining. And that's when people fall through the cracks. When you're not multiplying leadership effectively and efficiently, then the new people or the more introverts or whatever the case may be, they start to fall through the cracks. And that leader that isn't there to give clear vision and direction, then there's not a person to help navigate when there are bumps and ups and downs that happen in the life of the church, whether that be because of a difficult season that a family might be going through, or just whatever things as the ups and downs of life happen. When there's not a clear leader that's leading that, then that's when things, and they're just maintained for a while, they might start to decrease because there isn't a person there to help navigate the bumps or the frustrations that can happen. And so that's one of the reasons that the church of our size, of having someone that is over that role is important, because we don't want people to fall through the cracks. And then when they do fall through the cracks, we don't want to give the enemy fuel for the fire of going, yeah, that church hurt me because I went there for 2 months and no one said anything to me or whatever. Like that's a dumb excuse. Don't make that excuse. But also, the enemy does use that excuse. And that's what you were saying a second ago of, people leave and then complain that no one reached out to them. It's like, well, you never met anyone.
Right.
You didn't make any effort. And when there's not a clear leader that's encouraging people to reach out, to pay attention to the new people around them, to invite people in, then that's what happens. And we don't want to give the enemy a foothold in that. And so by being good stewards of what we have and always of reevaluating and making sure that things are working well, then we're going to do the best we can. So give us grace. Things grow. The church, not only is our church continuing to grow, but we're about to send out like 100 plus people to go plant a new church. And so give us grace as we work on this new season of the church, because we don't want people to fall through the cracks. We don't want, hey, remember that time when Evergreen planted a church? No one reached out to me and I wasn't taken care of or whatever. Like, there's going to be some bumps. And so give us some grace, and we're going to continue to be intentional with what God's given us. And that's why it's important that we have roles like the pastor over community for us to be able to do that and make sure that we're serving the people that God's given us the best that we can.
Mm-hmm. So what would you say is the hardest part of your job? What do people not know?
I think all of us could probably say this, but people probably don't know. Well, for me, for better or for worse, as you said, I have to play matchmaker more than I want to with life groups and Sunday schools and things, which ends up in tons of conversations. Like all of us have our own experiences of having, not only did I get like a dozen texts today and a couple of emails, but also a handful of people talked to me in the hallway and said, oh, hey, can you send me a message about this? Or, hey, what about this thing? And it's like, well, I have so many conversations that I'm balancing in my head.
Yeah. I know you're probably the person who gets the most messages from staff when they're looking for a specific need.
Yeah.
It's like, Matt, will you ask your life group shepherds and your Sunday school directors and your Sunday school teachers, do they have somebody that would be interested in teaching a 4th grade class or a 9th grade class or whatever it may be? Like, you're the pastor that's supposed to have tabs on the community, what people are good at and everything else. So I can imagine how much inquiry you get about those sorts of things.
So if I'm ever slow to reply to all your messages, please just send me a reminder and know that I'm probably working on it. I probably saw the notification. I'm like, ooh, I got to go ask, Roger or whatever, and figure those things out. And really, speaking of Roger, he's in my ministry lane. As well. He's over senior adults and Sunday school and several other things. And so he really helps out a lot with that. And I know he also gets a ton of messages as our church grows. And at this point, we've got, I think, 22 Sunday schools, and I think we're out of room for Sunday school. We're trying to finish up a building, which will give us a few more rooms for Sunday school. But yeah, as things grow and more people come and we got to multiply, we don't want anyone to fall through the cracks, but sometimes it takes a little while to cook on some of those new ideas that we have going on there. But yeah, so people don't realize probably how many conversations we have that we're balancing constantly in all directions for all of us. And definitely with my role being over community, I have a lot of those. But also I have a lot of really random hats that I wear that people don't realize, some secret hats, IT and other things that
you just went on a mission trip to scout out coffee beans.
Yeah. That one. I went to go scout coffee beans for the church. And this podcast is another random hat, because this podcast was born from me wanting to equip our life group shepherds and Sunday school teachers so they knew more about the inner workings of the church. So when people asked them questions, they were equipped to answer the questions about why is Evergreen doing, this, that, or the other. And as I was fleshing that idea out with Philip, he was like, that would really help a lot of our people. And I was like, that's true. And I don't think I have enough content just from my lane to really do a full podcast. But if this was like a broad thing, then I think we have enough content to go for a while to inform our people, not just our leaders, but then anyone else. So that way they can know what's going on and be excited about what's going on and feel equipped. And the more that they know, it's not just, well, now I know about that ministry. But my hope and our prayer is that when people know more about the ministry, they might feel a tug of, maybe I could jump in and help with that. Or maybe that's an area I could be serving in. And so here we are, So Michael gives us a lot of, leeway on our leash of whatever we can do. And so it was like, hey, I have an idea. And he's like, all right, sounds good. So
as long as you're getting your other stuff done, that's fine.
We're making a new podcast. So here we are.
And just by being your friend, you were like, hey, Philip, why don't you do this with me?
Yeah. By being my friend and technically my boss.
It's like, yes, I'm providing resources and I'm removing obstacles. So yes, I will do that.
And here you are.
And here I is. So I know that another aspect of this is trying to find good leadership. And one of the things that folks that are new to Evergreen don't realize is that our life group shepherds are not just like small group leaders like they would be in other churches. They also fill the role of deacon. So there's qualifications that are involved in that. Like
biblical qualifications.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so there can be some frustration with, we signed up for a life group 6 months ago, a year ago, and we're still not placed in a group. Well, if that's the measurement that we have for the caliber of life group shepherds, then we can't just throw together groups and be like, all right, you seem like you're the most adept leader. You got the best extroverted personality. We're going to make you the leader. We have to be really intentional about that process. And that's really challenging because we have how many life groups now?
As of the end of this spring semester, I think about 70. So it's grown about 10 a year for the last, No, I can see. I took over around spring break last year. So in a little less than a year and a half, we've added 20 groups.
Yeah. So there's a massive demand. So if you're,
I know how you feel.
Yeah, I'm going to assume,
and there's still more people waiting.
Yes,
yeah, I'm
many.
going to assume that if you're listening to this, then you are invested in what's happening at Evergreen, and if you are not serving in a life group, if you're not part of a life group, or you feel like God is calling you, like, hey, should I do that? Should I not do that? I'm just going to straight up say, we need you to step up and lead. There's a lot of qualified people in our church that are following Jesus, and they are mature believers. They don't have to have a perfect track record to be able to do everything perfectly. They don't have to be have a seminary degree. Like, your job is to shepherd people, love them well, and guide them in life. Be there.
One of the things accessible. I talk about at 101, and when I'm inviting people into life groups and stuff, is I try and explain the difference between Sunday schools and life groups. And the short answer of that is Sunday school, the content is the point. It's a classroom setting, 50 people-ish, whiteboard. It's a classroom. Life groups, the Bible discussion is not the point. It is the springboard to the point, which is equipping our people to know more about God, which then leads them to deeper discussions with each other, which leads them to vulnerability, which leads them to more intentional and open prayer for each other and with each other, which is an equipping thing that we do. And so going back to what you were saying about we need more people to step up and do things, it's not that, like you said, you don't have to be a dynamic leader to lead a Sunday school or a life group. I've talked to some guys who I've had people be like, oh, you should talk to so-and-so. He's an amazing teacher. And I ask them, hey, would you want to lead a life group? And they're like, no, my calling is teaching. It's like, cool. Well, I also need Sunday school teachers. So I would love if you would consider that. And then there's other people who I say, hey, I hear someone suggested you that you're great at facilitating things or praying for people or whatever. Would you want to be a life group shepherd? And they go, well, I'm not really a teacher. I'm like, well, good. That's not the point. So it's just being a good facilitator. Like you said, a shepherd. A shepherd is with the people. So just, can you love people well, be a part of their lives with them, pray for them, encourage them, and then send them out to whatever God is putting on their hearts, and being their encouragement. So yeah, thanks for the plug there. I've had a couple of people independently over the last couple of years, even before this was my job, who would say things to me like, man, everyone in our life group is so mature. They would all make great life group shepherds. Then I got the job and I asked them, they go, no, those are our people. You can't have them.
Yeah. And that, honestly, okay. So yes, you're saying that with a gentle tone. I will say it with an elder tone, that if you are in a life group and you know your job is to equip the saints and to provide leaders and equip leaders, if you are holding on to people because your comfort is more of a priority than spreading the gospel and building the church, you are living in sin.
Not only that, but you are being used to get in the way of the ministry that God is calling Evergreen to live out, to disciple the people of Evergreen.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And we try to be...
Matt's giving 2 thumbs up.
We try to be gentle and gracious in how we have those conversations. But since I'm not talking to a specific person and you're hearing my voice and you're feeling deep conviction, know that I am not talking to you. The Holy Spirit is talking to you.
Yeah.
That if you feel like you need to be involved and be leading and be, even if it's not leading a life group, partnering with somebody to shepherd a life group, they're going to be the shepherds, but you can come alongside them and provide support.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you need to do.
Yeah.
Okay, Matt. So last question here. How does your role help us to know God, share life, and change the world?
Yeah. Well, I kind of started to touch on it, but it's that idea of over Sunday schools, like the big buckets of Sunday school and life groups, learning the content, walking through scripture in Sunday school, and as well as hearing Pastor Michael's sermons, like that's knowing God. And that's what we do through Sunday schools, as well as life group. All of our life groups are built upon biblical Bible studies or reading books together, discussing the sermons together. It's all built on biblical content. And so those are intentional places, both in the Sunday school classroom setting or the life group living room type setting. Those are intentional places to know God's word, to wrestle with it together in community in a healthy way, because we're created for community, and that's where those things live out. And so through that, we also are sharing life, because whatever whatever the Lord is calling you to do, whether that be to serve in different areas of the church, or step out and volunteer in different things. If you are growing in your understanding of who God is, that's going to lead you to sharing life, because the right thing to do with wrestling through theology and biblical concepts is to do it in community. We weren't meant to study or to work or to learn alone. We're meant to learn and do all those things in community, because God is a relational being and we are created in His image. And from doing that in community, wrestling with Scripture and just walking through the ups and downs and seasons of life together with one another, we, as relationship being our default setting, we are going to be sharing life. And that's why we don't, go back to everything we've been saying, we want smaller groups. We don't want people falling through the cracks. We want people not only being connected and poured into, but also being sent out. Because going back to the point of what you were just saying, of saying like, hey, if you're hanging on to people, you're in direct opposition to what God's trying to do. Because going to our church vision statement of know God, share life, change the world, we can't change the world if we don't send out.
That's right.
And we can't, whether we're changing the world one person at a time through one-on-one evangelism, or through small groups that are connecting to their lost neighbors, or through inviting people to church on a Sunday and saying, hey, come to my Sunday school with me. These people are great. And bringing them in. If we're not willing to bring in the outsider to hear the gospel, or willing to multiply our group because there's not enough room to bring in the outsider anymore, then we're not doing our job. And so not only that, it's not just about multiplying. And usually when I talk about sending out to life groups, they always think, oh, you're taking my people. It's like, no, we're making more room so that more people can come in. But it's also, not everyone's called to be a life group shepherd or a Sunday school teacher.
Right.
Like that is a smaller percentage of people to do that, because Paul even said not many of you should want to be teachers, because it's a higher calling. But there are some people who, and this is why I love community and I love small groups. If you've been feeling the conviction to, man, I really should step up and be an Awana leader next year, or I know they need more sponsors at Falls Creek in the summer, I really should set some of my PTO aside and do that. Knowing that your life group or your Sunday school is praying for you and encouraging you for that, what better encouragement is there than knowing that your close friends, the people in your church family, are praying for you when you're stepping out in faith to serve God? That's also what it looks like to be sent out to change the world. And so using the communal aspect of how God created us to interact with each other, of being in community, equips us and encourages us as a backstop of a prayer partner. It's a good foundation to be sent out, not just to make more groups, but to go and serve in whatever capacity God has equipped it and gifted you to do that in. And so having, a couple dozen people in your corner is a huge encouragement to send us out to change the world. And the enemy doesn't want us to do that. He wants us to feel alone and disconnected from community, because if we're not invested in community, then we don't feel compelled to go out and to do more and to bring others inside. And so the enemy wants you to stay on the outside and to feel disconnected.
And there's so much counterfeit community in the culture today through social media and gaming and all of those digital options. It gives that feeling of community, but it's a fleeting feeling because it's not actual community.
Yeah.
It's like I said, it's fraudulent. And so being able to shake a hand, being able to look eye to eye, being able to have hard conversations, that's biblical community that every follower of Jesus is supposed to be a part of.
Yeah, we're embodied beings for a reason.
That's right.
And so that's why we all remember COVID church. And not only was that just dumb in general, but it was like physically and emotionally and mentally taxing on us, because we weren't meant to be separated like that. And so knowing that and having experienced that in recent memory is just all the more reason to be like, well, forget that. I'm going to super lean into community and be a part of it, because I know that that's what I was designed for. And I know, in contrast to when I couldn't have it, that this is actually ideal.
Well, it's interesting. 5 years ago, my in-laws were in a really bad car accident in Colorado. And my mother-in-law spent about a month in the hospital in Colorado Springs at Memorial. And while we were there, a church that was connected to my father-in-law, he's a pastor, they took us in and they gave us a place to stay. And while we were there, I met with their young adult pastor. So I was the young adult pastor at the time here at Evergreen. So I was like, oh, I can meet somebody and build a network or whatever. Because we were just like, basically, we'd go to the hospital We go to the hospital. It was Groundhog Day. But I met with him, and he blew my mind and changed my perspective about community, because he said something interesting. He said the buzzword in church life is the word community. And community is like the idol of our generation. Everything is about community. We say it everywhere. We put on our promo stuff. Come here, it's a place to belong, whatever.
Or like authentic.
Yes,
that
exactly.
was a buzzword for a long time. Yeah.
So, but he said something interesting. He said, if you build community outside of anything besides Scripture, it will fall apart. Because if you build community around, it's the whole thing that we talk about often around here, that you catch what you fish for. The kind of lures that you use are what you're going to keep people with. And he said, if you try to build it around a personality, a dynamic personality, you try to build it around an idea or a program or giveaways or whatever, he said, as soon as there is any kind of friction, which there will be guaranteed between sinful people, the community is going to crumble. So you have to build it around what's true. So knowing God has to be the center point of all of our community. And in doing that, it equips us to be able to handle conflict. It gives us guidance about how to build our systems, about how to prioritize things. And in doing that, it equips us to share life. And then also, like, as I'm living out the gospel in my home, the gospel is seen and heard, and people are they're equipped and they're nurtured and they're taken care of in the context of community. It's pretty incredible. Man. Well, Matt, our very last question that we always ask: how can people be praying for you?
Well, as I kind of already alluding to, with the quick growth that Evergreen's been having, as well as now sending out a lot of our leaders, I need more people, but then I also need, from me, I think, some clear, intentional vision on, for me, how to best steward this growth and the transition of sending people out, because I don't want to drop the ball. Like I want it to be not only a celebratory thing because a new church is being planted, but also a healthy thing because healthy things grow and healthy things also multiply. And I've seen in my church planting experience, I've seen churches that send out 50 and then it gets backfilled with 100. And that's an awesome burden to be like, hey, we sent out people and we had a couple extra chairs for a couple weeks and now there's more people here, because exciting new things that are happening brings in more people. And we pray that's what happens with Evergreen and with Verdant Church. And so because of that, for me being the one that's trying to keep an eye on connections and making sure no one falls through the cracks, is I want clear vision and leadership to jump in with me. So, and it's not just that we were trying to convict people, be like, oh, you should send out your people, but also if you've been thinking about it for a while, there's a need. We're sending out several good leaders and Sunday school teachers and stuff to go with Verdant, and that's awesome. But that means we need several more people to take their place. And I know that the people are there because God gives us many gifts, and we're very, very different people, and there's so many great people here in the church. And so I'm, not just trying to, in a heavy-handed way, be like, hey, you need to volunteer, but I'm also just excited to see who's going to step up and who's going to be there to fill a position in a way that that we desperately need in this new time, this new season that we're being in. And
in a way that only they can.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. You don't need to be the replacement of your Sunday school teacher. You don't have to be him. That's one of the things that all of us that are learning to preach is like, okay, I'm not Michael. I'm not John Piper. Like, don't try and be him. No, because, as Michael tells us, preaching is communicating truth through personality. And whether that be on the stage with a sermon or in a life group, just talking through scripture, like, hey, God gave you your personality and your giftings for a reason. Use that to be a blessing to other people.
That's right. Well, I want to thank AJ for joining us as our guest interviewer. And Matt, as always, love hanging out. Great info. Wanted to encourage everyone that we exist to empower the congregation to make a tangible difference in our local context. That means moving beyond just attending to truly knowing God, sharing life, and changing the world. We want everyone to see the richness of the body of Christ and how he is working around us through the ministries here at Evergreen. Thank you for listening. Just remember, it helps us and the podcast when people subscribe and they share these episodes. So please help us equip the saints for ministry by helping get the word out. For more information, for resources, for podcasts, and for sermons, please visit our website, evergreenbc.org.